What is going on, guys, and welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name is Bernie. Thank you for joining us today on the Touchdowns to Home Run show. That your day is going absolutely fantastic. Today we're going to be looking at some NBA draft prospects, and I'll be sort of ranking them based on how much of an impact I think they could have for the Raptors in the future. Just before we do get into this video, though, if this is content that you guys do like, please do me a huge favor. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs for more content just like this. But let's get right into the video. So the first guy in our number one spot of our ranking is, of course, Cade Cunningham, the 6'8", 220-pound guard out of Oklahoma State. Now, Cade Cunningham is essentially the lock as the number one pick from everything that I've seen and heard, and really rightfully so given the production that he had last year. And I think regardless of positional needs, Cade Cunningham is the best player available. He is the lock to go at number one. Now the Raptors, of course, have a 7.5% chance at this number one pick, which means, even in comparison to some of the other teams above them, they do still have decently favorable odds in order to move up in the draft. But in terms of Cade Cunningham last year, averaged 20.1 points per game, 6.2 boards, 3.5 assists. He did it on about 44% from the field, 40% from three, and about 86% from the free throw line. What's really impressive about Cade Cunningham is his size and his strength, and it really mirrors a guy sort of like Luka Doncic, but in terms of versatility, sort of mirrors a guy like Ben Simmons. And that's really, really impressive, obviously, in terms of his frame. His body frame in general is really unique. He's able to use it sort of really advantageously in order to be a perimeter type player, but also really, really good on defense, and allows him to be a very solid passer. It allows him to see over the defenders, and of course on the defensive side of the ball allows him to guard sort of 3 to 4 positions. He's got outstanding vision and really, really high basketball IQ. He's not a guy sort of like a typical guard that you see now with those flashy ball handling moves, but he does get himself into great sort of passing angles in order to get those assists just based on the basketball IQ solely, which is super, super impressive. Again, I watched him a bunch last year. He should be the number one guy, again, regardless of what positions people need. That's why Raptors don't necessarily need a guard, but obviously if you're at number one, you take the generational talent that Cade Cunningham is. Number two was a little up in the air, but I'm going to say Evan Mobley. This could easily, arguably, be a guy like Jaylen Green. But I think, given his power forward and center eligibility, I think Evan Mobley makes a little more sense with the Raptors' positional needs. He's 7 foot, 210 pounds, plays power forward and center, just finished his freshman year at USC, averaged 16.4 points per game, 8.7 boards, 2.4 assists, and 2.9 blocks. A lot like Cade Cunningham, I would call Evan Mobley a generational talent. Not only what he does on the offensive side of the ball, but he's really a two-way generational talent, which is super impressive as well. He's a natural rim protector, tremendous jumping ability. He's a great inside player, but also can attack you from the perimeter. Wasn't terrific from three. I think he shot at about 30%, but again, he still does have that in his arsenal. The only reason that Evan Mobley probably hasn't been pushing towards that number one spot, or, even has fallen to number 3, 4 in some mock drafts, his attitude. He's had a bit of problems in terms of effort that have been some red flags throughout the season, but I think when he reaches the NBA level, he's a super talented player. I think that's something that'll just come with maturity and experience. And then Evan Mobley, in terms of the Raptors, again, drafting somebody who sort of fits your positional needs, allows you to move a guy like Birch, Boucher, over to the bench, gives you some more bench depth as well. And sort of as I was saying in previous videos, those types of guys, I don't know if they're centers or even power forwards on contending teams. So I think this type of move really deepens the Raptors. Number 3, we got Jaylen Green. Again, this is a guy who could easily be number 2. I think he is probably the second best scorer behind Cade Cunningham in this draft. He's 6'6", 180 pounds. He's a shooting guard who played last year in the G League. Again, I don't think the Raptors need a shooting guard, but I think that if you do draft a guard, it's probably better to draft one at the shooting guard position, just because you have Van Vliet, Malachi Flynn at point guard. But Jaylen Green, again, great scorer, averaged just under 18 points per game last year. Also added on 4.1 boards, 2.8 assists. Also active on the defensive side of the ball with 1.5 steals. Again, he's got really good size at 6'6" at that guard position. He's also got a frame that's sort of filling out. He's been adding some more muscle over the years. I definitely saw that last year. He's extremely explosive. Overall, just a tremendous athlete. He's got great body control, especially around the rim. Hits contested shots, and just overall does not need a lot of space in order to get shots off. He's got a very quick release. He gives you a lot of effort. He's a great hustle player, especially on defense. As I was saying before, he can defend really anywhere on the perimeter. He's an improving defender. He's also really, really good with his quick reflexes at being able to sort of pressure the ball handlers. So Jaylen Green, definitely an option for the Raptors. Again, I don't know how much they want to go down the guard route if they end up picking at a spot like number 2 potentially. But yeah, Jaylen Green, number 3. Number 4, I like Jonathan Kuminga. Again, sort of fits the Raptors' positional needs. He's 6'8", 205, has eligibility at really small forward and power forward, and played last year in the G League. He's not necessarily a center, which is the Raptors' biggest needs, but he is a really, really good rebounder, as we'll talk about in just a second. And even if he does play at somewhere like small forward or power forward, maybe off the bench next year for the Raptors, overall just allows the Raptors to have a bit bigger of a lineup with a 6'8" size. But again, last year in the G League, 15.8 points per game, 7.2 boards. So again, does fill up the stat sheet in terms of rebounds and 2.7 assists. So there's a lot that he would be able to do for the Raptors. He's another extremely, extremely athletic guy who's nearly unstoppable around the rim. He's super, super mature in terms of being able to play under the basket. He can finish through traffic with both hands. An efficient shooter that even does extend out to the perimeter. Again, really impressive with his size. He's become sort of better at being able to pass out of drives. And then, of course, on defense, I mean, he's got that length. He's got good timing. He's able to block shots. So Jonathan Kuminga, possibly a guy who maybe doesn't fit into the Raptors' positional needs right on, but definitely a guy who could be a big impact player, I think, for the Raptors. The last guy that we're going to be discussing is Keon Johnson, the 6'5", 186-pound shooting guard and small forward. Just finished his freshman year at Tennessee last year, averaged 11.3 points per game, 3.5 boards, and 2.5 assists. What I really like about Keon Johnson is he's a guy who has a lot of raw talent, but he's also pretty developed as well. He's a very mature player. He does have some issues, some flaws on the offensive side of the ball, but he is still a guy who could make an immediate impact. And if you're planning on putting Fred VanVleet at point guard to start the year next year, Keon Johnson might be the best player that the Raptors would have to complement Fred VanVleet at the shooting guard position. But again, he does have some flaws. He's got the raw talent. Tremendous athleticism is really where everything sort of starts for this kid. He's basically a smaller version of a guy like Jaylen Brown. He's a great scorer off the dribble and off motion plays. He's a good playmaker, a good rebounder for his size, fairly active defender as well. So he does a lot for the Raptors. I think if the Raptors do pick a guard, you pick a shooting guard, just because I think you want VanVleet probably at that point guard position. But again, I guess we'll have to see. Just before we do end the video, though, I know a lot of people are wondering why Jalen Suggs might not have been in this top 5. Just for me, I think, it's where the Raptors are going to draft. If you draft really high, there's a lot of options, I think, for some bigger men, not counting Cade Cunningham, who's a guard. But if you're picking number 1, you're picking Cade. But if you're like 2, 3, 4, you're picking some sort of size, which is not what Jalen Suggs is at 6'4". And then I think if, you're a Raptors team picking somewhere, really any team picking 6, 7, or 8, but especially the Toronto Raptors, I would lean more toward Moses Moody. Let somebody else pick Jalen Suggs. I think there's some better point guards that you could get later on in the draft. So I'd rather the Raptors pick a little bit of size, even though it doesn't necessarily fit their positional needs. But yeah, anyways, if you guys did make it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts, your comments, your predictions down in the comment section below. I'd love to get some discussions going. If you did enjoy today's video, though, make sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs for more content just like this. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.